Should you use an umbrella insurance instead of an LLC for your business or for your rental properties? I'm Matt Sorensen, wealth lawyer, been advising clients for 20 years as a lawyer, and I've had that question so many times. Should I just use an umbrella insurance, Matt, instead of having an LLC? Now, I want to go over what umbrella insurance actually is, and then we're going to talk about how an LLC works. Now, the main goal here is asset protection, whether it's insurance and an insurance policy coming in and covering a loss or damages that we have, or whether it's an LLC providing limited liability protection, that's the L&L and LLC. We want asset protection. We're trying to protect our personal assets, our other businesses or assets from any liability that might happen in our rental properties or in our business. So let's get to it. Should you use an umbrella insurance policy or an LLC? Now, I'm going to break this down here. I've got a whiteboard and I want to go through how an umbrella policy works. The number one thing I want to emphasize here is that an umbrella policy is very misunderstood. It is not sold properly, and most people have the wrong impression of what an umbrella policy actually covers. So I want to go over what an umbrella policy is first, then you're going to understand, do I really want this or not? Then I want to get to the LLC and go over how the LLC works so you understand how the liability protection works over there and what the drawbacks and costs are as well. All right, so let's talk about the umbrella policy first. Most people think of an umbrella policy of insurance and they think of, well, an umbrella policy is something that covers everything. It's like an umbrella over my head. I won't have any water hit me. I won't have any damages or things hit me on the head. However, an umbrella policy does not protect everything. It is not something covering you and protecting you. An umbrella policy is really better described as excess insurance. What happens in an umbrella policy is it provides excess insurance coverage to insurance you already have. Let me make sure you understand that. Umbrella policy, if you get one, does not cover anything new. It does not give you any new protection. The only thing an umbrella policy does is it provides additional protection on top of insurance you may already have. So let's say you have a business and you have a commercial or general liability insurance policy in your small business. If you get an umbrella policy, the only thing the umbrella policy does is it says, hey, if in your business you have a liability and the business insurance policy, the general liability insurance policy provides coverage and that coverage is exceeded, only then does the umbrella policy come in and kick in any coverage at all. If something is not covered under your business policy of insurance, your general liability insurance, or any other insurance policies you have, the umbrella does not cover anything. So nothing new is getting covered under an umbrella insurance policy. It is only providing excess insurance once the original policy is exceeded. If you have a rental property over here, this is your cute little rental, and let's say you have a landlord-tenant policy and the landlord-tenant policy covers a loss and is exceeded, you go outside the coverage limits because the loss is large, only then does the umbrella policy of insurance come in and provide protection. So remember, the umbrella policy does not cover anything new. It simply layers on additional protection to existing policies you have, and only after those existing policies have been fully used and the limits have been exceeded. That is all you are getting on an umbrella policy of insurance. So many of my clients over the years have misunderstood that, have bought an umbrella policy of insurance thinking it's covering the gaps, thinking it's covering stuff that they don't have protection for under their regular general liability policy or their landlord-tenant policy for their rental property. That is not the case. The umbrella policy is only excess insurance. So the insurance industry knew, however, that if they called it excess insurance, they wouldn't sell those damn things. So what did they decide? They made up with a cute marketing name. They called it umbrella insurance, and they sell a lot of it. So when you're looking at the cost of an umbrella policy, what I want you to look at is that cost worth additional protection? Am I really trying to get excess insurance here to provide more coverage on top of coverage I already have? Or was I thinking this was going to cover new things and provide more protection in areas where I didn't have coverage? Make sure you understand what you're actually paying for as you're making that analysis. Now let's contrast that with an LLC and how that works. And this is where the LLC, I think, has some benefits here, because what happens in the LLC is, let's say I have an LLC that owns the business here. Okay, this little circle here with the LLC is, I have an LLC that owns the business. Or over on the right here, I have an LLC that owns the rental property. Now let's say there is a liability in the business. Okay, well, I still have my regular general liability policy in my business, and whether that's covered, the liability is covered under the policy, whether it's exceeded, whether it's not covered, I still have the LLC protections. What's going to happen in the LLC is that liability that happened there, let's say it was a customer that had an issue, we had some lawsuit and liability, they have to sue the LLC. They can't sue me, they can't come over and sue my rental property, get at my assets. They are stuck in the business. That is what an LLC does. It limits your liability to that entity entity, in the example here, the business itself, and that is it. It doesn't matter whether you have insurance or not. It doesn't matter whether insurance is protected. It doesn't matter whether you exceed the insurance limits. You get that limited liability protection to protect all your other assets, your personal assets, your other real estate assets, your other investment assets. We get to contain the liability, and it's stuck just in that LLC. Now, what is owned in that LLC is at risk. Don't get me wrong. You still have some liability there. So we still want our regular insurance over there. And you might still do an umbrella policy on top of it if it's cost effective. But that is the limited liability you're getting with the business. Now, with the rental property, it's the same thing. Let's say I got a tenant that slips and falls on a rental property. If it's over here where I have no LLC, I'm hoping my landlord-tenant policy of insurance covers it. And if it doesn't, I can't rely on the umbrella, so I'm kind of screwed. Over here, if the landlord-tenant policy doesn't cover it, I still have the LLC to back me up. Now they're stuck at that rental property. They can't get to other LLCs I have that may own other rentals. They can't get over to my business. They can't come down to my personal assets, my home, my bank accounts, my investment accounts. That stuff is all protected. The LLC is going to contain and limit the liability into that entity itself where that landlord-tenant dispute happens. Now, that is the benefit of the LLC. That is why so many business owners and investors use LLCs. Everybody remember the news about Donald Trump? He has 1,000 LLCs. Why is he doing that? He's limiting his liability in the different properties, enterprises, and business he has to that business. He doesn't want one thing going wrong, going and affecting everything else he does. This is why big corporations and businesses have hundreds of entities. They are trying to limit their liability amongst the things that they do so that one bad apple doesn't affect the whole amount of assets and resources and things that they spend years, decades building up. I like the LLC. This is me. Maybe I'm a little biased as a lawyer, of course. I like the LLC for that. I, of course, have a lot of LLCs that I'm using in my businesses and real estate investments because I want to contain that liability and any risks that could happen in one entity to not affect everything else. Now, does that mean you shouldn't use an umbrella policy? No, I'm not saying don't use an umbrella policy. I'm just saying don't think that it's a substitute for an LLC. They are totally different things, and make sure you understand what the umbrella insurance policy covers. It is only giving you additional insurance protection on top of insurance protection you already have. The LLC, on the other hand, remember, the LLC, on the other hand, is giving you unlimited liability. You could have a $10 million loss in one of these entities or some type of lawsuit involved. That whole liability is contained in that entity, doesn't affect anything else. You are not personally on the hook. Your other businesses and entities have zero risk as well. That's why people use the LLC, why we are setting it up every day at our law firm for clients across the country at KQS Lawyers, and why it has been the #1 business structure for business owners and investors in America. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've learned something about protecting your assets. Please make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. I'm going to bring you more great information like this video. We'll see you next time.